when we're renting properties out, we actually have a huge checklist of things that we do. But I know a lot of people are worried about how to check the short-term tenant.
There is a setting called Instabook where you don't get to check the person. You basically rent it to whoever books it. But if you're very concerned, you can turn off Instabook, ask questions people will request, and you're gonna say, hey, what are you coming to the city for? Like, is this a business trip? Is it leisure? How many people? Is it the family? So you basically ask these questions and you get a good judgment on what their intentions are, what their trip is about.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk. And this is the second episode of the year. And we got Anton here from Ad Astro Host.
How are you, buddy?
Good, man, good.
Thanks for having me over.
Thanks for coming. I mean, I've been looking for someone in the Airbnb field for a long time to talk to, but the majority of the people that I know, I wouldn't know how much background knowledge they have. And knowing you and how meticulous you are with your research, I'm like, you know what? I gotta have you. And I'm actually glad that, you started this venture, because I think this is one avenue that needs someone that knows marketing, knows strategy, and is detailed as you are.
Yeah, to be honest with you, there are a lot of players in the business, and I've actually used some of the bigger companies myself for the properties that I had, and that's why I started this company, because it was a disaster. Like, the place got destroyed, and it's probably one of the fears that people have. You Airbnb your place, it's gonna get ruined, which is technically not true, because if you have poor management, it'll get ruined. But yeah, I had that experience, so I decided to do my own thing, and it's gonna be a very different experience.
That's amazing. So let's get into it, because I know right now the whole purpose of this talk is for people that are looking for investment properties, not just buying and renting it out long term, especially with the amount of issues in Ontario we have with the landlord and tenant board laws.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Maybe short-term rental could be a way to look at it. So let's just talk about the advantages.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are a bunch. One of the big things is that there is tenant squatting issue, like you mentioned, in Ontario, right? And you can have a tenant just not pay any rent, and good luck with the tenant, Toronto Tenant Board or whatever it's called, right? And it's going to be months, if not years, getting them out, right? So you don't have any control over your property unless you get lucky and you have a nice tenant that's willing to sign documents and those forms and get out. So you don't have control, and you don't even own your property, right? You have no rights to your property. So with short-term rental, you are free to do whatever you want. You can't have people just tenant squatting there, because it falls under Innkeepers Act, and it also short-term rental, vacation rental type of property, right? So I would probably not recommend renting it for more than 90 days, not to run into trouble. But if you put together a contract that makes sense, that is, check with lawyers, make sure, you legally go through all the process, it shouldn't be an issue. So that's a big bonus, that you control your own property, right? Obviously, you also make a little bit more money by doing short-term rental, because you're killing it in the summer season in Toronto, especially in this area. If you do cottage country, obviously it's all summer, and that's when you want to do short-term rentals.
During the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not day by day, but like 2, 3 days, 5-day periods, right? And then during the winter, you do longer-term rentals, 28 days plus. So, those are one of the main reasons you would want to do short-term rental, for sure.
So that's an interesting one that you mentioned, because the whole myth of short-term rental is, you're going to have people coming in that are staying for 2 or 3 days, they may party. But that, in my opinion, could not be the fact with majority of the rentals. So one of the things that you mentioned is that you can still do longer term, like 28 days plus, that doesn't fall under Landlord Tenant Board Act, and you're going to make sure your property is, you're still getting the payments, you're not going to have any issues. And if there's no payment, what would be the recourse there? So let's say someone comes and stays for 28 days or a month, and after a month they don't pay you. What's going to happen then?
Well, technically you can just come in and kick him out. It's not like the issue with long-term tenants, where if you kick him out, you're going to get fined with $25,000 fine or whatever it is, right? Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Here, it's your property. They're trespassing
Yeah.
past the fact that they stayed there for the given time, either through Airbnb or other platform, or you have your short-term contract that you did privately. So
Beautiful.
if they don't want to leave, you call the cops get them out. So it's technically your property and they're trespassing at that point in time.
So let's talk about also the fact that how do you screen the tenants?
Right. So that's a big thing. You mentioned that you have people come and party for 3 days. That's actually super rare, especially if you go through the right process. So first of all, you can vet the tenants, and if you do proper due diligence, you look at the reviews, you see what's happening. If they're booking the same night, right? Like if they're coming just for one night from outside of the city on a Friday night, you probably, that's not the best idea, right? So you can protect yourself through various ways during the booking process, right? And
so while we have you there, I want to go like step by step because I know a lot of the people, that's their main concern. Because when we're renting properties out, okay, we do a credit check, we do various things. We call the references, we check their employment, we do a lot of searches. I mean, we actually have a huge checklist of things that we do, but I know a lot of people are worried about how to check the short-term tenants. So one of them, you say you check their reviews.
yes.
Okay, so let's just
there's
start from there.
there's a step before that, right? If you're very concerned about people partying at your home, there is a setting called Instabook where you don't get to check the person. You basically rent it to whoever books it,
It's
right?
like a hotel, like you just
Exactly, right? And again, like I said, 99% of the time it should be fine, especially if you said, minimum 2 days, if you said that they have to have a valid ID, all those things, right? But if you're very concerned, you can turn off Instabook and you can ask questions people will request, and you're going to say, hey, what are you coming to the city for? Like, is this a business trip? Is it leisure? How many people? Is it the family? So you basically ask these questions and you get a good judgment on what their intentions are, what their trip is about. Is it business? Is it right? So that's the kind of conversational
piece of it.
Exactly, piece of it, right? The second part of it is the tech that you can actually get. We're going to talk about some of the technology stuff. So the tech that can actually indicate that somebody's partying in your house. It's there's few devices, Minute, Alertify, that send you notifications if the volume decibels in your house go above certain period of time and they're sustained for a long period of time. If somebody drops something, it's a loud bang, or there's TV that has a loud scene in it, it's going to pick it up, but it's not going to register as a party, right? And because it has to be extensive, also it sees how many devices are in the house. If it's more than allowed amount, right, for this property, like if you're allowed to have 3 or 4 people and you have 8, right away you know that it's an issue, right? So it picks up on that and sends you notifications, and right away you can let these people know that they're violating the rules. They have to either leave or they have to stop the party.
Right, okay.
And you can contact Airbnb and they will tell them that their contract is void and they have to leave. And then at that point in time, you either have to go physically remove them or you can use the cops. It varies.
What happens with the payment? So let's say if they've booked for 3 nights, they've stayed 2 nights, third night is the issue.
You keep the payment, right?
Oh, okay.
The payment stays with you. They violated their contract. One thing I have to mention is that you have to write those things in your house rules, right? As long as you write it out that there is no partying and like these are the quiet hours, you can even have a fine, let's say $1,000. I always put $1,000 fine for smoking or partying, right? If that is actually being proven either by the neighbors, concierge, or your devices, if you have those devices, you collect another $1,000 on top of it and you keep your thing.
And the $1,000 is collected in like...
Airbnb will pay you.
Oh,
right, and whether Airbnb will collect it from, I actually had a conversation with the customer. Like you said, I'm very particular, I'm meticulous, and I had a conversation with them. I said, look, what if I put $10,000, right? Like, are they going to pay me? They said, okay, it has to be a reasonable amount, and if they did damage of $10,000, obviously they will reimburse that with air cover. But if it's just a fine for partying, it has to be within reason. And Airbnb will pay that fine to you. And then however they deal with the guest, it's up to them. But in reality, that's never going to happen. It's happened so rarely because people who are going to gonna come and want to party. When you have these house rules there, when you have this device written out, like people are not stupid. They know they're gonna get caught. So most of the time they'll just find another place that is easier to do it with. So there's things you can do that you will just basically weed those people out right away.
Interesting. So we talked about the fact that it's actually maybe safer for people to consider short-term rental. Let's talk about some of the myths, because there's a bunch of misconception. Like one of the biggest one is, which I personally believed it was, that there's going to be a huge wear and tear on your property if you're Airbnb-ing it. But then I have a few clients that have Airbnbs, and I was shocked to find out actually their place after a year and a half looked exactly the same as before. And the amount of money they made doing it, it was just crazy, because if they rented it, there would be way more wear and tear.
For sure. So that's the biggest misconception, is that, oh, your place is going to get destroyed. And like I said, it could get destroyed if it's being mismanaged. There's always that possibility. And bigger companies, like big Airbnb companies that are property management companies that cover many, many cities and stuff, you know, they're not hands-on as much. And I've had the experience. I used two. And after one particular one, my property was, you know, had like $10,000 worth of damage. But it wasn't, it was a poor process that got there. But if a person is managing by themselves, then they will probably check it out once the tenant leaves, see what's going on. And if there is any damage, you just report it to Airbnb. Somebody cracks your countertop, you get a new countertop because it wasn't there before. So you're actually getting free upgrades to the property, and it's going to look beautiful. You're going to clean it all the time, right? You don't know how tenants are going to clean it. And in my case, I'm actually getting a tenant out for February. That place is destroyed after a year.
I don't want to say a long-term tenant.
It was a long-term. She was there for a year, and this property is 2 years old. The first tenants were meticulous. They were great. They stayed there for 10 months, and then they left because they relocated. And then after a year of this almost brand new place, because those guys were very, very good, I need to, I don't know, do maybe $5,000-$10,000 of renovations right now to this property after a year. That's a long-term tenant. There is odor there of like dogs pooping in the middle of the, like, and it's not great, you know? And with Airbnb, you have cleaners coming every single time. After 3-4 days, you get a full clean, right? And you pick a good team that's gonna do a good job. They send you photos. You know.
Can you not let people in with pets?
Airbnb? Yeah, definitely. There is a section there. You cannot not let people with service animals. That's a different story, but that's, again,
so if you say, let's say, no dog allowed, or if you're having a dog, you charge more.
You could charge more, but usually it's discretionary.
Right.
Basically, simply put, is that it's the same thing with smoking and partying. It's your property. You can say whatever you want, right?
That's interesting, because if you're doing it long term, you can't say no pets. Yeah, that's a misconception that is out there, that if you're having a tenant, you can tell them simply, hey, listen, you know what, you can't have a pet, you can have a dog or a cat. The only place that you can say you cannot have a pet is if it's in a condo, and in the condo bylaw it says no pet, which is very rare. There's restrictions of number of pets you can have, or like how heavy they are. 2 is if the pet is dangerous, or like, you know, it's got health issues.
Get a lion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, first of all, you can't have exotic animals to begin with.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
But so that's the issue. So it's funny that I see ads out there for landlords saying, oh, no pets, no smoking. Even the no smoking is going to be questionable how you can enforce that. If it's a condo, it's easier.
Exactly.
Because
you get fined, and you just pass the fine. I got fined multiple times in my condo, the Airbnb place, right? We had to put signs everywhere. People were smoking. I get fined by a building. It's like a $950 letter from a lawyer.
Funny thing is, a lot of people think in condos you can go out in the balcony and smoke. Actually, you got to be in your unit and smoke. You can't go in the balcony. Balcony is a common element, and you can't go smoke out there. And, you know, if you want to smoke inside, well, good luck with that. It's gonna smell pretty bad.
It's true. And as you mentioned, you have full choice on Airbnb, and there's like a toggle in your house rules whether you want to allow pets or you don't, whether you want to allow parties or you don't, whether you want to allow what I don't remember the term they're using, but basically commercial photography and video, whatever, right?
Interesting.
So there's a lot of stuff, and then again, there's a section where you can also add your own house rules, and some people go very extensive. Like the more extensive you go, the smaller your market is going to be, right? But I advise for everybody to put definitely no smoking, no partying.
Well, it all depends what kind of a house you're renting out, because let's say if it's a cottage country, you're like, listen, you know what, doesn't matter, whatever happens, and you want to maximize how much you're making. Maybe
Right.
put even partying allowed. But if you're having a, let's say, custom house, if you've got a nice house in Toronto, you don't want to do it. You want to make sure you don't have that much damage. So let's talk about the damages and the insurance. So you'd only work with Airbnb, or are there other platforms?
There are the other platforms. The top ones would be Airbnb, VRBO. It would be Booking.com, and now really upcoming with Google Vacations. Oh, it's Google Travel, and then Google Vacations under Google Travel, right? That is more of a direct booking platform, and there's a lot to discover there. And we'll get to direct bookings in a second. But with the other three platforms, and there's more, there are more platforms, but these main platforms, they provide some kind of coverage. And obviously, the most famous one is Airbnb AirCover, and Airbnb is the most prominent platform for the city of Toronto, GTA, and Muskoka, because it's just the way it is. In Europe, Booking.com is more prominent. It's more of a European thing. People like that, using that for some reason.
And Booking.com is instant booking, or you can still vet them? Is it an instant booking?
Well, technically, it depends on how you set it, right? Like
Right.
it's you set your calendar, and people just book it.
Well, like, can you have conversation like Airbnb?
No,
vet
it's
the
more of an
people?
instant booking.
Oh, okay.
It's people
So
basically.
Booking.com is like that. What about VRBO?
VRBO.
Is it like
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't remember about that one.
Okay.
I think it is also similar to Booking.com. It's a similar platform. VRBO is the Expedia,
Okay.
right? And the Booking.com is obviously Booking.com,
Yeah.
right? So
Because
VRBO.
I've seen
Twitter.
Expedia has a lot of Airbnb stuff on it. I think they started like allowing that.
Well, VRBO is Expedia. Maybe
is
they're
it?
maybe they're
Interesting.
using a little bit of that. I gotta look deeper into that
Yeah,
stuff.
because
for
I
sure.
know a few people that got their stuff downtown Toronto on Expedia. Apparently, there's some requirements, but they let you there. So let's talk about the insurance program that the Airbnb has.
Right. So the air cover, right? Why people want to rent through Airbnb, and a lot of the times people are afraid to rent direct booking, because you have the air cover that covers, I believe, up to $2 or $3 million worth of damage for the
Wow.
guest. The guest really has to go through a big bender over there to destroy that much property. So if anything happens, you take the photos, and Airbnb is actually pretty good at. I've done it in the past, and that's why I was so amazed by the company I was using in the past. It was just, hey, like the cleaners come, the bathtub looks like it's all scuffed up and destroyed. They take a picture, you just apply. Somebody smokes, you just say, hey, there was a smoking fine. It was against the house rules. Just apply through Airbnb, and they wouldn't even do those basic things, which was very bizarre. So, but it's very simple, and it's a process where you get your money back. Like I said, somebody cracks your countertop, easy, right? And a lot of people don't know that you can actually have a similar type of service when you're doing direct bookings. Direct bookings are very useful because you don't pay commission to Airbnb, and you can have a pool of your own clients. But again, sometimes you never trust anybody fully, right? And somebody can do something, and you basically want to be protected. So there's this business. It's called Superhog, right? Where they do is they do the know your guest part, where the guest fills out the form, provides their driver's license or some ID, so they keep that. They take $500 hold on the guest's credit card. They don't charge you or anything, just a hold in case of damages, and they cover you from $500 to $5 million, even more than Airbnb for any damages. And they're super good based on what I've heard from a lot of people at paying out, even better than Airbnb. So if I've heard horror stories where people listed their place for a month on Facebook Marketplace, and then it just got destroyed. So to protect yourself against that, you can get that service, and I think it's literally like $12.
So that's if you're doing direct.
If you're doing direct, exactly.
okay.
So it's like $12 a month, so it's even less. I think it's $10 a month.
Interesting. I've never heard of it. So it's called what? Superhog?
Superhog, yeah. And it is $10 a month Canadian, so it's like $120 a year for the know your customer service. So just to be a customer of Superhog, they bill it a year, and then it's $18 Canadian per booking. So you're paying $20 with tax for a booking.
Interesting.
It's not even that much, but you're literally protected and you have a peace of mind. If somebody rents your place for 5, 6, 7 grand, even 3,000, you pay, the
Do
100.
they have a lot of customers like Airbnb?
Oh, it's different. It's only it's like an insurance service almost,
Oh,
right?
so you have to find your own client. that
Yes,
makes sense
exactly.
in
It's
there.
for direct bookings. When you have clients that are interested to rent
Got
your
it.
place,
That is
right?
interesting. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
for sure. It just gives you peace of mind. You have the insurance for floods and all those other things. It doesn't cover that, right? But this covers the damage side of things because you never know. Somebody drops something. Somebody
Break something. Yeah, like
it's nice to
stuff
have
happens.
Yeah, so this thing is actually super useful, and it was a big thing that I found through my research that I'm actually going to utilize tomorrow. I'm signing up with them right now for one of the properties I have. I have a call with them later today for onboarding, and I have a tenant who wants to rent for 42 days privately. All right.
And that's someone you know, or is someone from your
It's somebody
advertising?
who came across my table, but I don't know them very well, right? And I'm not sure what that person is like, so I want to have the protection, right? I would put them through Airbnb if this service was not available. Like I would be paying commission because I wouldn't be comfortable with them living there if this service wasn't there. But with the service, I'm saving money.
So let's just, so do you rely solely on Airbnb to advertise any property that you're managing, or is there any side advertising that your company would do?
To be honest with you, you're pretty much relying on the platforms and your network and maybe social media, but your social media. There is not a lot of advantage at putting money behind the property because you're going to charge your client or the person who owns the property, right? They have to spend money. Like you get bookings. If you have a place in the city of Toronto or in the GTA, you're going to be pretty booked up. And you can use multiple platforms. Like I said, you can, a healthy portfolio of being on Airbnb, you can be on booking.com. By the way, VRBO officially cannot list properties in Toronto because they don't have the license by the municipality to be one of the places where you can list.
That leads me actually to the next question, because in Toronto you need a license.
Yes.
And it has to be your principal resident, and you can only rent it out for 180 days per year.
Yes, under 180 days, yeah.
Under 180 days. So how does that affect people? Like, I mean, previously you could just rent it out whatever you wanted. Right now, 180 days. Have you seen a massive drop in the number of units being Airbnb'd?
It's a big issue, to be honest with you, right? And hopefully no other restrictions come forward. I mean, if they do come forward, then we're just gonna have a lower supply, and the ones who have Airbnb are gonna do very well, right? So it's the flip of the coin, right? On one side, it's bad for the masses, but the ones who follow the rules and are able to keep things together, they will be,
In or around GTA, do you need licenses?
You do need license technically everywhere, pretty much, right? But in most places, they're not enforced. That's why people don't even bother getting them. You need license in Mississauga, you need license in Brampton, you need license even in Muskoka. I doubt a single cottage has a license.
And is there a restriction on how many days, or no?
There is no restriction, right, in those areas. And that is why, technically it depends, right? But because it's not enforced, it's very difficult to police that. But what happened with the city of Toronto is that Airbnb actually delists your listing for under 28 days of rental. You can still rent the same listing for 28 days plus, but for the short term,
you can't.
It blocks you, right? So that is why it is important to follow that, especially in the city of Toronto, and you have to get that license. Without the license, you can't actually do it. In Mississauga, you should be getting a license. I think there are certain rules there as well, but people don't even bother doing it because Airbnb will allow them. Now that they have these new laws with the government of Canada not allowing people who don't have the official license to deduct expenses from this business, they're going to be encouraged to get it, and people really should, right? And that way, everything is followed properly. But it is a big issue, to be honest with you, because I've been fighting with the city of Toronto for the property that I have a lot. I've emailed their compliance department. It's not a great process. And it has, because there is literally one person sitting answering phone calls for the whole city.
Of course they would do
literally
that,
one person, and that person doesn't even have access to the compliance side of things. They say, oh, you just got to email them. And when you email them, you pray to God that they're going to email you back, because they might not even get the email. They say, oh, you didn't send us the right information. So I actually got involved the counselors, city counselors, to be pursuing this matter, because it's, there are communities, people are very upset, and a lot of people are, like you said, the number of listings has gone down because people just don't want to deal with it, because it's a lot of
it's a huge process.
Exactly, it's a lot of work, and when you're doing it yourself, you don't want to deal with it. I do it professionally, so I know how to do it, so I do it efficiently, and I get the results done, and I get it figured out. But a lot of people don't want to deal with it, which leaves, there's less competition, better for the people who are listing, and means that there is opportunity for people who are doing it the right way.
So right now in 2024, any new restrictions?
The only restriction is it's not a restriction. The only new law requirement, well, not technical requirement, just a law that you cannot deduct if you're not officially.
So you cannot deduct what?
So if you don't have the registration, right? If you did not register with your local municipality, you don't have the registration number, you're not allowed to deduct any expenses from your profit of the short-term rental. So, for example, you have maintenance, you have you buy soaps, interest, whatever you usually deduct.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
You cannot do it. But if you do have, you follow the rules, you have the official license,
you're good.
Then you're good. I don't know how it's going to be implemented. Maybe you have to put it into the system when your accountant is filing.
Number.
Yeah, and then they say, okay, yeah, you're fine, you can do it. They'll figure out the system to do it. But that's the new thing that they rolled out.
So, anything else to add that you think it's important to know if you are getting into an Airbnb business or short-term rental?
There's lots of things, and it's gotta think through that one. Well, I was actually gonna ask you a question. The interest rates might be coming down this year. How do you assess people's appetite for investing into properties that potentially they will do short-term rentals with, not just rent them out?
Well, the biggest problem in Toronto is that it has to be your principal res, right? So that poses a huge issue because a lot of people, live in their property. They don't want other people coming to it. So that's one. There are ways around it. But I think just as a whole, I personally, after looking into Airbnb, believe that it's a much better avenue than just renting long-term, especially if you have one unit and you want to maximize the income. Again, for two main reasons. One, you're most likely going to be making more money during that period. Two, the wear and tear is going to be much less, because the examples that I've seen, again, here and there, you're going to have that one unit that got destroyed. But if, as you said, you go through the process properly, the wear and tear is going to be much less. And overall, you're going to have a much easier time, because you're not going to have to worry about the tenant staying there and not paying you. You're not going to worry about any of these crazinesses that happen, as you just said, for your unit. That person goes in and they all look fine. After a year, you go back into the unit and it's all destroyed.
And we did multiple security checks. We did like 3 background checks. The only thing we didn't do was criminal check, literally. And apparently it was almost like a drug addict den over there. People coming in and out. My neighbors messaging us saying...
We started doing that for leases. It's crazy.
It's insane. But we did as much. We called the work. We got the references from friends. She paid 4 months up front.
So one thing I always tell my clients as well, when you do these background checks, it doesn't eliminate the risk. It just reduces it. And things go wrong while people are there. I've had people that moved into a house, they got separated. The husband stayed there, the wife moved out, and then the house literally, from being like immaculate, it went like it got destroyed. I had vice versa, they were still together, but the house condition like deteriorated because they were not in a good relationship. I've had people that got sick in a house, just like mental issues, and they didn't take care of the house. Things happen, but again, if you have an investment, there are risks associated with it. But I think with
you have more control over your own property,
booking,
right?
Especially with the insurance that Airbnb has introduced or other platforms may have, it really reduces your risk. And I personally think it's a good way to go.
Yeah, and if you're doing Airbnb yourself, you just be a little bit more diligent about what's happening. You can always file for that air cover charge to replace whatever item is damaged, and you're gonna improve the quality of your place. It's always gonna be clean. it's in a better shape if it's taken care of, right? And you have the control over it, because you can't control what the tenant's gonna do, right? Like there is no, you can do all the best background checks, the person can be the best ever in your mind, and then it's gonna get, like you said, things happen and gets destroyed. Here you have control. Somebody does something, you get that person out.
So before we end it, I want to talk about your company. So tell us just, general, what services you provide that could help, let's say, an end user right now that has one unit and just wants to be hands off.
Right. So, I mean, it's very simple. It's basically short-term rental property management, right? And it starts with guest communication and guest bookings, and then it's maintenance and cleaning, right? You organize this whole process so everybody is very happy. The host is getting paid. They're making 20 to 50% more than they would be making after all the expenses, right? Like we charge 20%, and after that, you're making still like 20 to 50% more than if you were doing long-term for the most part, right? Especially when you're established, you can even go, once you have a lot of reviews. One of the properties I have has 105 reviews, and it's a super host, right? And it's
amazing
4.8 average rating, because everything is taken care of, and it's killing it, right? It has 50% more income than it would
interesting.
Yeah, than it would be making long term. So there's a lot of benefits there, and you keep the place clean through good quality cleaning services that we work with, and maintenance, right? Like I said, maintenance and damage control, right? Like a lot of the times you need to do basic things like change that air filter that gets, I remember my air filter was so dirty that it literally was an icicle I had to take out because that company didn't take care of it. So there's, a list of things that you need to do. You need to do it properly. You're courteous with all the clients. You reply in time. And, the check-in process is beautiful. Another thing you asked me, what else to add? The check-in process is very important, right? And doing maybe something like a electronic lock, right? The Wi-Fi locks or the Bluetooth locks. August lock is a great one. Condos don't allow to change the front. It only goes on the back. I'm installing one tomorrow, literally, for one of my properties. It's fantastic, right? It's everybody. They don't need to deal with a concierge. They don't need to deal with log boxes. You can have a log box as an emergency tool there, but it just boom, the phone, done, everything. Yeah, beautiful. So there's a lot of these little things you do to streamline the process, make everything comfortable.
There's a whole business around the Airbnb, I guess.
Yeah, there is. There's these devices that alert you for certain things, the locks, smart locks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things that you can do. So yeah, and we this is our business. Anybody can do it themselves, but it's really how much time are you willing to invest? If you were able to streamline the process yourself, be my guest, and that's a fantastic thing to do. But if you don't want to do it, it's still an active income, because it's not like you rented a property for a year and a washer breaks down, you do it once a year. Here, you still have to...
You got to be more involved.
Exactly. You're more involved. It's an active. If you want it to be a passive income, you hire somebody like us. And we're a boutique company that focuses on, giving the white glove experience that I wasn't getting with these other companies. So that's why I started it. So that's
interesting. Yeah. Well, you guys heard it here first, because for me, it was really interesting to see the level of service you provide and the detail that goes into each listing. If you guys need to contact Anton to ask any more questions, we got the contacts below. Give him a call. And Anton, thanks a lot for coming. Hopefully we'll get you back in. Listen, like if there's any updates with Airbnb,
I'm sure there will be a bunch, especially in this city.
Yeah, I know it's going to be crazy with the amount of bylaws they put. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Be sure to watch our last episode with Joe Trimboli. That was an amazing episode, especially with all the conversation about mindset. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Anton, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.